A very good morning to all of you, my dear children. In today's session, let us learn about verb tenses. Okay, so we have already started with the topic, that is worksheet 10, verb tenses, in the previous session. So let us continue with the same topic for today's session too. So tenses of the verb, what did I tell you? What does tenses of the verb tell us? Yes, come on, tell me. What is the tenses of the verb tells us?
The time of when the action.
Very good. It tells us the time. Okay, the time when the action takes place.
In the
Very
past.
good. So it tells us the time when the action takes place. Is it in the present or in the past or in the future? So it tells us the time. So the tenses of the verb tells us the time when the action has taken place. Is that clear to all of you? Clear? So the tenses tells us the time of the action or an event occurred or happened. Okay, so tenses of the verb, it tells us the time when a person did something or when something happened. Clear to all of you? Yes. What does the verb tell us?
Verb tell us action word.
Yes, verb is an action word. Okay, verb denotes an action.
Verb is an action
Okay, verb denotes an action that is being done by a person or animal or a thing. Okay, so the verb, that is the tenses of the verb, tells us the time when the person did that action. Is that clear? Okay, so tenses of the verb, it tells us what, my dear children? Come on, tell me once more. Let me hear you. It tells us the
time.
time. Okay, tells us the time when the action has taken place.
Place.
So you have jumped. Okay, so is it jump or jumped or will jump? Whether you are jumping now or you have jumped yesterday or you'll be jumping tomorrow. So it tells us the time of the action. Is that clear to all of you?
Yes.
Yes. So let's move on to the topic. Yes, all of you mute your audios, my dear children. Yes, all of you mute your audios. Yes. Now let us move on to the topic. Clear to all of you? Yes. So we are on the topic worksheet 10, verb tenses. Clear? So we know that the tenses of the verb tells us the time when the action takes place. It tells us the time. That's why you can see the picture of a clock here. So the tenses of the verb tells us the time when the action takes place. Okay, it tells us when the person, see, the tenses depend on when the action takes place. Clear to all of you? So the verb tenses depend on when the action takes place. So in English, there are 3 main tenses. We have already learned in the previous session. Okay, so what are they? What are the 3 main tenses? Yes, come on, tell me.
Past.
Yes. First, we will start with the present. Present, past, future. Okay. All of you, please do keep your audios muted. So it's not necessary for me to give you all mute. Okay. So only if it's necessary, you unmute your audios, my dear children. So it will be convenient for me. Okay. So here it is, present. So in English, there are 3 main tenses. Okay, the first one is the present tense. The second is the past tense. Okay. All of you, please have a look at it. Yes, present tense, past tense, and the future tense. Okay. Present tense. Yes, they've started, my dear children. So what should I do now?
Join your board in arrow.
Yes, I saw it, but let me do something for that. Yes. Okay. Now it's clear. Okay. So present, past, future. Clear to all of you? So present tense indicate what is happening now. Okay, all of you, please don't be looking here and there, children. This topic is very, very important. Okay, so I wanted all of you to have a look at it. Please do keep your book aside and your pencils aside and look at the screen. So I've told you in English, there are three main tenses. The first one is the present tense. Present tense indicate what is happening now, means now. Okay, the second is the past tense. It indicates what has already happened or already done. Okay, done. The action is over. Okay, then comes the future tense. Future tense indicate what is going to happen. Okay, in future. Future means maybe tomorrow or day after tomorrow, maybe next week or next year. It is going to happen. Okay, so present tense indicate what is happening now. Past tense already done, and future going to happen in future. Okay, so when it is in the present tense, children, we write the base form of the verb, that is cook. Okay, base form of the verb, that is cook. If it is in the past tense, to indicate that the verb is in the past tense, we add d or ed to the verb to show that the verb is in the past tense. Clear to all of you? Yes, verb is in the past tense. And to indicate that the verb is in the future tense, we add the will before the verb. Will cook. Future tense is quite easy. You have to write the base form of it and add will before the verb. Okay, will cook, will play, will sing, will write, will read. Okay, this is future tense. You will do it tomorrow. You will learn tomorrow. You will play tomorrow. Okay, so if it's tomorrow, if an action is going to happen in future, we write the verb in future tense. Okay, now, so we have already discussed about all the 7 verbs. Okay, so I told you these 7 verbs. What do we do to these 7 verbs is that in order to change the base form into the past tense form, we have to just add d or ed to the verb. Okay, so those verbs are called as regular verbs. Regular verbs. Okay, so these verbs are called as regular verbs. So regular verbs is that just add d or ed to the verb to show that the verb, these are called as a regular verb. Okay, just add d or ed. But I've told you yesterday, that is in the last session, but all the words do not follow the same rule. Okay, there are some other verbs also. Those verbs are called as irregular verbs. What do we call them as? Irregular verbs. Okay, we call them as irregular verbs. Okay, all of you, please do keep your workbook open. Everything is there in your workbook. Okay, so please do look at it so that, and also look at the slide. I'm displaying the same page for you, page 16. Okay, so let us be thorough with what is there in your workbook first. So these verbs are called as irregular verbs. Irregular verbs means the past tense of these verbs do not end with d or ed. Clear? The past tense form of these verbs do not end with d or ed. So the form completely changes. For write, what's the past tense of write? It is
wrote.
Wrote. Have you understood? The past tense of write, it is wrote. Those verbs are called as irregular verbs because we can't add d or ed to the base form in order to make it into the past tense. Okay, the form completely changes. So those verbs are called as irregular verbs. Come on, see this. Write. What's the past tense of write? It is
Wrote.
wrote. Sing. What's the past tense of sing?
Sang.
Sang. What's the past tense of drink?
Drank.
Drank. What's the past tense of buy?
Bought.
What's the past tense of think?
Thought.
Thought. Go. Go.
Went.
What's the past tense of entirely changes? At least here it starts with the same letter. Here it completely changes. Go. What's the past tense of go? Come on, say it. Went. What's the past tense of drive?
Drove.
Drove. What's the past tense of take?
Took.
These past tense form, what we have to do is that we have to learn it well. Is that clear to all of you? Yes?
Okay, ma'am.
Yes. The future tense is quite easy for us. Future tense, I told you, you have to write the base form of it. Please do the correction there, children. It is not wrote, it is will write. Now, just now, please do it is a printing error over there. Please do write. It is not wrote, it is write. Just write it in your workbook. There is an error there. So I've told you.
Workbook, it is right.
It is right. It is clear.
Yes.
Yes, in my workbook, there is a printing error there. Okay, so if there is a printing error, my dear children, please do write it properly. It is will write, it is not wrote. So here as such, in the future tense, you have to write the base form of the verb and you have to write will before the verb. That is the future tense form of the verb. So how will we write? What's the future tense of it? It is will write. Will write. Future tense of write, it is will write. Okay, sing. What's the future tense of sing?
Will sing.
Will sing.
Sing.
What's the future tense of drink?
Will drink.
What's the future tense of buy?
Will buy.
The future tense of think?
Will
Think. What's the future tense of go?
go.
What's the future tense of drive? Will drive. What's the future tense of take? Very good. So these regular verbs, the past tense is quite easy, children. But for the regular verbs, the past tense, you have to learn it very well.
Ma'am, you can hear me?
Yes, who's that? Okay, you have to learn it well. Clear to all of you? Yes?
Yes.
Yes, my dear. So unless we learn this table well, we can't do the exercise which is there in page number 17. So what we have to do is we have to learn it very well. Okay. So all of you, please do take your rough book for time being.
Okay,
Keep
ma'am.
your rough book and we have to learn these verbs very well. Okay. Keep your rough book in front of you. So before we learn this well, let me show you a slide before that. Then I'll move on to it. Please do keep your rough book open. Your workbook is already open. You have nothing to do with the workbook exercise. The words are given there. So just keep the workbook open. What we have to do here is we have to learn the past forms well. We should be thorough with that. We have to learn it by heart. Unless we know the past form of these by heart, we can't proceed further with the next class. That when you go to the 4th standard, you should be thorough with what is the past tense of sleep? It is slept. What's the past tense of think? It is thought. The past tense of go, went. You should be thorough with it. Okay. So for this session, let us learn it well. I told you that the present tense form, we have to write the base form of the verb. So look, dance. Okay. I'm not talking about the sentences. It depends on the subject of the verb. I'm not talking here. The sentences are not given here. So I'm not talking about the sentences, just only about the words. So the present tense form is that we just write the base form of the verb. Base form depends on the subject. Okay. When we learn about the subject verb agreement, I'll teach you in detail. Okay. So we write the base form of the verb. Okay. But in the past tense, I've told you, How to identify that the verb is in the past tense? We add D or ED to the verb in order to indicate that the verb is in the past tense. Clear? If the verb is in the past tense, what do we do? My dear children, come on, tell me.
We add ED or D.
Very good. We add, yes, we add. What is this is happening here?
Mohammed Rayan, start sharing.
Started sharing. You do something. Please, children, please keep your hands where it is. Yes. Now, past tense. Okay. So to indicate that the verb is in the past tense, what do? We add D or ED to the verb to show that the verb is in the past tense. I told you that. One more thing, for not all the words follow the same rule. Here it is walk. The past tense of walk is walked. Okay, only look at the words, don't look at the sentence. Sentences we will learn later. She walked to the park. So walked is the past tense. Okay, so the past tense form is we have to add ED to the verb. So this is a past tense. This is how we identify that the verb is in the past tense. Walked is in the past tense. Okay, now you have to tell me whether the verb is in the past tense or in the present tense. Now, they danced to their favorite song. Now, identify the verb in it. Dance. What tense it is? Someone tell me what tense it is. What tense it is? Past tense. Because how you have identified that the verb? Yes, only one answer. Yes. Yes. Dance. Yes, you have added ED to it to show that the verb is in the past tense. Okay, now we know that the sentence is in the past tense form because the verb has ended with ED. So it is in the past tense form. Clear to all of you? So danced is in the past tense. Now just we are going to identify. We are not going to learn the rules. Just we are identifying the verb, whether it is in the present tense, past tense, or in the future tense. Later on, we will learn. Okay. Now, I told you that only for few verbs, it can be ended with D or ED. Those verbs are called as regular verbs. We have already learned in the previous session. Regular verbs. Okay. But not all the words follow the rule. What is the past tense of sleep, my dear children? Sleep. Sleep. It is, this form is wrong. For all the words I've told you, we can't add S-L-E-E-P-E-D. This is wrong. What's the past tense of sleep? It is slept. What's the past tense of sleep? It is slept. Sleep is an irregular verb. I told you, irregular verbs do not end with D or ED. Their form changes. Okay, so here it is slept. The past tense of sleep, it is slept. So slept is in the past tense. Okay, so we have to. Yes, my dear. No, I couldn't hear you. Okay, so slept is in the past tense form. Now, here, eat is in the present tense. The past tense of eat it is, we cannot write there eaten. It is wrong. What is the past tense of eat it is? Ate. Past tense of eat it is ate. A-E. Clear. The past tense of eat it is ate. It is a irregular verb. I told you for the regular verbs, it doesn't end with D or ED. That clear to all of you? So it is A-T-E, it is ate. Clear to all of you? Now, I told you this form doesn't, this rule doesn't, for only few words like regular verbs, we can end the past tense form with D or ED. For rest of the verbs, that is irregular verbs, the form completely changes. But for the future tense, children, it is very easy. Why means to the base form, you have to add will before the verb to show that the action is in the future tense. Who's that talking, my dear children? Please. Only if it's necessary, you unmute it and speak. Okay, for the future tense, add will before the verb to show that the action is in the future tense. Okay. So now we are moving on to, so we know what is present tense is. Present tense is a base form. Past tense add D or ED, but only for regular verbs, we can add D or ED. But for the regular verbs, the form completely changes. Okay, but for the future tense, what we have to do, we have to add will before the verb. And base form, we have to write. Base form is the present tense form. Okay, take and add will before the verb. That is a future tense form of it. Now, what are we supposed to do is, all of you, please do take your workbook, your rough book, my dear children. Yes, all of you take your rough book. Are you all ready? Okay. So all of you, please do take your rough book and we are going to learn and write. Okay. So I hope it's better that I unmute you all.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. All of you, please do take your rough book.
Yes, ma'am.
Are all of you ready? Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Are all of you ready? Yes, my dear. Yes. Now write the first word. What's the past tense of write? Write is the present tense form. Okay. All of you, please do write it. Write. The past tense form of write it is. Come on, tell me what is the past tense form of write? It is wrote. W-R-O-T-E. Wrote. Write it. Write it in your rough book. I wanted all of you to write. Okay, my dear children.
W-R-I-T, right.
Yes, please don't say it aloud. Yes, say it in your mind, my dear. Who is a P-O-C? Is it Rishan? I cannot see your face. P-O-C-O-M-N Pro. Yes.
R-I.
Yes, okay. Chriswin. Okay. I could see him. Before I could not see his face. Okay. Carry on. And the future tense of it is, you have to write the base form of it. So, will write. Will write. Okay. Will write. Children, please say it slowly. All of them are writing. Yes, have you written?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, now let's move on to the second word, sing. What's the past tense of sing, my dear children? Sing it is? Sang. Please do write it, sing. Write it in your rough book, sing. The past tense form of sing, it is sang. Yes. A-N-G. Sang. Okay. Sang.
Ma'am, this is write and study.
Yes, this is write and study. Yes, and we have to know
How
it by
many
heart.
times?
Yes, no, only once. That we will write and study later. During the session, we will write it only once. Okay, let us be familiar with the words. Okay, writing and studying, we'll be doing it later. Let us be familiar with these words. Write, the past tense form of write, it is wrote. At least we have to identify it. Okay, so wrote is a past tense form. So sing, the past tense form of sing, it is sang. So the future tense form of it is will sing. Okay, will sing. So we have to write the base form together with will. Will should be written before the verb. Okay. Come on.
Okay, ma'am.
Yes. While you're writing, children, please slowly write. Okay. Yes.
Will sing.
So when you write, children, please do learn up to. Why means you should be familiar with this. You should learn it.
I'm finished.
Yes.
Next word. Next word.
Okay, now let's move on to the next word. Yes, have all of you finished? Now let's move on to the next word. That is, we have finished with write and sing. Now let's move on to the next word, that is drink. Come on, right? Start. Let's start together. Okay, drink. What's the spelling of drink? It is D-R-I-N-K. Drink. Past tense form of drink, it is drank. Okay, so D-R-A-N-K. Drank. And the future tense form is that add will before the base form of the verb. That is will drink. R-I-N-K. Yes. So this is the way you will write and study. Drink, past tense it is drank, and the future tense it is will drink. I wanted all of you to write it only once for time being.
Next word.
Wait.
Fish. I'm finished.
Yes, okay, my dear. Sribala, have you finished? Sribala is very happy today.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Sribala finished?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, very good.
Nanda was finished.
Okay, very good, children.
Maria, I'm finished.
Okay, enough. Thank you. I know that. I'm looking at each one's work.
We want the next word.
Yes, now let's move on to the next word. Okay. Some of your names have been changed. Who's Aditya Satyan?
Ashik Satyan.
Okay, I'm sorry. Ashik, no? Okay, now I found your name. Okay, now let's move on to the next word. Okay, so we are finished with drink. Now let's move on to the next word, that is buy. Okay, buy. What's the spelling of buy, my dear children? B-U-Y. Buy. And what is the past tense form of buy? It is
Bought.
B-O-U-G-H-T. Bought. Okay, buy, bought. And what is the future tense of it is?
Will
Buy. Okay, unless you write, children, you will not learn at least once. So we will learn it very quickly. Okay, will buy. Okay, Vedant, Siddesh, are you writing? Yes, I can see you. All of you writing. All should write at least once. Others, please to mute. All of you, please to mute your audios, my dear.
Okay, ma'am.
Muted, my dear.
Right.
Mute.
Right. Will write thing.
Yes, okay. Now let's move on to the next word, that is buy is over. Now let's move on to the next word, that is think. Yes, come on, let's write. Are you all ready? Yes, take a pencil. Think. What's the spelling of think? T-H-I-N-K. That is the present tense form of the verb. That is the base form. Present tense. It is think. Okay, it is think. And the past tense form of it is thought. T-H-O-U-G-H-T. Thought. Think. Thought. Okay, now the future tense it is will think. Yes. Now let's move on to the next word. Yes, buy is over, my dear. Now let's move on to think.
Think. Thought. Will think.
Yes.
Finish, ma'am.
Yes.
Finish, ma'am.
Yes.
How many are there?
What is it? I hope all of you are doing it.
Yeah,
Yes.
then it's finished.
Yes, please. I could see you all. Some of you are sitting. Some of you are writing.
Finished.
Yes.
Next word.
Yes, now let's move on to the next word. Add on.
Who is Aaron?
Yes, that's what it is. Haran, no? Haran Pilajo. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, Haran. I saw you. Haran. Now let's move on to the next word. We have finished with think. Now let's move on to go. The present tense is go, my dear, but the past tense form of it is went. W-E-N-T. Went. And what is the future tense form of the verb? It is will go. Will go. So in this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words we have learned. Okay. Yes. Will go. Yes, is okay.
Go.
Sabika is absent. No, Sabika is not there. What about Leon? Leon is there. Leon is present.
Right.
Leon, my dear, are you present? Leon, are you present, my dear? Leon is not present. Leon is absent. Okay.
Ma'am, Crispin is present.
Wait. I don't want to hear. Crispin, I marked you present. Harshika is absent, no?
Yes.
Only the absentees, I'm calling out the names. The present, Azahava is absent. Akshay is absent. Akshay, Abir Safat, I did not see him, Abir.
Abir is present.
Abir is present. Okay, Abir is present. And what about Akshay Krishna? Are you present, Akshay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Akshay is present.
Okay.
Okay. Azahava, is she present? Abir, I saw you. Absent. So only 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are absentees today. Okay.
I finished the next word.
Okay, now let's move on to the last word, that is drive. Come on, write. Drive. D-R-I-V-E. Drive. What's the past tense of drive? Drove. Okay. D-R-O-V-E. Drove. And the future tense it is will drive. Will drive. Will drive. Will drive. Okay. Will
Ma'am,
drive.
next word.
And the next word it is take. T-A-K-E. Take. The past tense of it is took. T-O-O-K. Took. And the future tense form of it is we have to write the base form, add will before the word will take. So we have learned. Okay, so we have learned from the words 8 to 15. Okay. Each words we have learned. So I wanted all of you to write and study these words at home very well. So we should be thorough with these words. Okay. We should know, we should be familiar with the past tense form too. Okay, children.
Finished.
So in today's session, we have learned the 3 different form of the tenses. That is the present tense, the past tense, and the future tense. Okay. So we know that there are 3 tenses, the present tense, the past tense, and the future tense. Present tense is the base form. Past tense, to some words, that is regular verbs, we add ed or ed. For irregular verbs, it doesn't end with d or ed. Okay. And for the future tense, add will before the base form of the verb. So with this, we have come to the end of today's session. Okay, now it's your part. See that you proceed very well. Okay. Okay, from the next session onwards, I'm going to stop till here. 1 minute, my dear. Let me finish. Let me finish. From the next session onwards, I'll be doing a revision. Okay. So thank you all. Bye bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Give me lunch. Bye bye, children. Take care.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you all. Bye bye, children. Thank
Thank
you.
you, ma'am.
Thank you, my dear.